What is up, everyone? JD here. I hope you're all doing well today. Today, I'm really excited to bring you my review of the FireBird FH922. This is a very interesting knife, and I'm really looking forward to getting into this one. Just to show you what comes in the box, you get your standard Gonzo box, has your label here with all the information about the knife. Inside the box, the knife comes wrapped in bubble wrap. You have a sock for storage if you don't have a case. You have information about Gonzo and your moisture wicking pack as usual. As you know, I'm now opening the box, carrying the knife and handling it, cutting with it, getting my thoughts and impressions together, showing you what comes with the box instead of doing an unboxing video and then later doing a review video. That way you're getting all of the information in one shorter formatted review. I'm going to go ahead, go over the stats, do my comparison knives for size reference, talk about thoughts and impressions, and then I will make alternate recommendations just in case you're not feeling the knife after the review. All right, so first, let's go ahead and jump into the specs. The knife has a 3.5-inch D2 steel blade. It does look like it is in a spear point shape. Full flat grind with a swedge out towards the end. I would say it's probably about 60% the length of the actual blade. It is a flipper only, and it does have G10 scales coming in at 4.25 inches. Overall length of the knife is 7.75 inches, and I did weigh this and take the measurements myself because it is always so hard with knives sold on Amazon to get all the specs. The weight that I weighed in was 3.8 ounces, so let's just re-verify that that is the weight. 3.8. Looks like it was teetering towards 3.9, so it might be a little bit on the high end of 3.8. We got it. But still pretty good ratios when you think about a 3.5-inch D2 steel, 3.8-inch. That's not bad ratios. Let's go ahead and jump into the comparison knives for size reference. First up, I'm going to bring out the Spyderco Yojimbo 2. We'll go from hilt to end, and as you can see, these are going to be pretty comparable in size. And I apologize if I'm moving a little slower today. I am trying a different position for the webcam, for the tripod for the camera so that I can move a little bit easier right-handed, but it is going to be harder left-handed if I do have to use both hands. So we'll see how this works out, but I think it gets the camera in a better position for these comparisons. All right, next we'll bring out the Spyderco Shaman, and as you can tell, this is going to be a lot bigger than the FH922. All right, let's go ahead and get these compression locks from Spyderco out of the way, and then we'll bring in the crossbar lock knives. First up is going to be the Benchmade Bug Out, which is going to actually be a really good size reference. These two are very close in size. You get a little bit more length on the FH922, but still really good profile comparisons. And then next we'll bring out the SIG K320 made by Hogue, and as you can see, the Hogue is just going to be much larger and a little bit longer than the Gonzo. So the Gonzo is kind of right in the middle of these two, but definitely more closer to the Bug Out. All right, let's go ahead and put these crossbar locks away, and then we will bring out the budget knives. First up, I'm going to bring out the QB Royal KU321. This is also another really good size reference here because this is a sub 3-inch blade, so you'll really get to see the difference between the 3.5-inch and the sub 3-inch blade knife. And then, of course, as always, my Buck 110. As you can see, this is longer, but it does have a very similar ergo presence right here as far as the height and the length. It does have a little bit more hanging out of the back, as you can see here, but still pretty good size reference. All right, let's go ahead and move these budget knives out of the way, and then we'll talk about my thoughts and impressions on this knife. So I've had a couple of other recommendations from subscribers that have been telling me to check out some of Gonzo's knives. And recently I had a conversation after my last review, which was okay. It was an okay knife. I can't remember what it was. I think I actually still have it up here. Yeah, the FB7601, which was their crossbar lock. And I just didn't, it had good ergos, and the blade and everything were fine. I just didn't really think for the money that that it had necessarily the best crossbar setup, best action, compared to another knife that I had in my inventory that I am going to bring out here later as an alternate recommendation. But this knife really did impress me quite a lot, and I'm glad that I got the recommendation to check this one out. It has really good access. It has a medium geometry with a nice wedge on it. And let's see, I have some paper here from a knife I sold earlier. Let's see, it's going to be tough because I have the camera in such a lower position to try to to get to the knife, so I'm going to be right up on the camera. But as you can see, it has a fantastic edge from the factory. I love when manufacturers are able to get D2 that sharp to where it performs like that. It's really impressive, and I'm very happy to see it because it is hard to get D2 to take a very fine edge. And when it comes with a fine edge, if you have a strop or a ceramic rod, if you use your knife a lot, or if you're using it on a heavy duty, hard use type scenario, it is going to be easier to maintain to keep that fine edge than it is to put it on there. It's going to be a little bit more of a work. Now, as I mentioned, this is very much, to me, seems like I'm sorry, I didn't mean to laugh, but I literally just stuck this between the legs of the tripod to get this angle, but it's really working out for me. So I think I finally found an angle that works. But this reminds me very much of that spear point shape, which I like because for the utility cuts, to get down onto the edge, you're now not having to go as far to get down to that tip. The angle's not that uncomfortable. It does have a sweeping belly. There's no flat part here, but when I did actually test this on some cardboard, and I'm actually kind of getting low, I'm saving some boxes for some knives that I had to ship to recoup funds, sell and ship to recoup funds for other knives that I've bought for the channel. I don't have much cardboard left to test, so it's very selective and very minimal cutting through the cardboard, but this definitely sliced right through it. This by far is my favorite Gonzo FireBird knife. I know that I've only tested 2 others, but this by far is a very good example. It came nice and solid, nice long blade, good length to it, and the ergos are really good. It is chamfered around the edges, and the liners do stand just slightly proud, but the way that they do that chamfering with the liners, it actually feels very comfortable in hand for long periods of use. Now, I know that you really don't have to grip a knife but so hard for cutting through materials such as cardboard, rope, maybe some piping or things of that nature, you know, like a thicker piece of round piping. You're not having to hold it hard to get through that materials because you're pushing away usually anyway. But what I'm saying is it's comfortable and you're not feeling in hot spots. And if you're having to do a lot of breaking down of boards or cutting through rope and things of that nature with your knife, this I found is a very comfortable, very neutral position. It actually, I thought in the pictures it was going to be perfectly even length throughout, but it actually has a slight taper when you come into the pivot, so it's a little bit thicker out and it tapers down, which I really do like. Not a big fan of drill through lanyard holds. Again, the reason I say that about all knives, not just this knife, is because of the fact that when you put that lanyard here, you now have thickened the back piece here, and that part is going to be like really bulky back here on the pinky, which the pinky is the smaller finger. You're already having minimal contact with that part of the hand, and it just kind of feels awkward in hand. So that's why I'm not a big fan of it that way. My favorite is when they drill through the back spacer and have you go through that, or they add the little lanyard barrel on the back. That's my favorite, and that, again, all knives, not just this knife. The texturing on this is pretty good. It is not as good as the Spyderco jimping, but it's better than a lot of other examples that I've encountered. So you do have nice texturing here and good gripping. It is that chrome hardware that you get on the budget knives, which I'm not a really big fan of. I feel like it makes it look cheap. Yes, it is a cheap knife, but that doesn't mean that it has to look cheap. Take Simcut, for example. A lot of their hardware now comes black washed or black. And I like that look. I think it makes it look a little bit more premium, but again, that's a small gripe. It is nice that they did include a filler for the wire pocket clip on the left-hand side of the scale. makes it sit flush, and it's a nice touch. It's a nice add-on at this price. This is a really good price. This is a $28 knife. So just under $30, you're getting D2. In my opinion, you're getting a really good ergonomic knife, really going to be comfortable in hand. It has a decent pocket clip. It's a lot stiffer than I thought it was going to be. And because it is that wire pocket clip, it does have the duckbill out further here. And I think that's because of the wiring. It has to do that. I'm actually carrying today my Grand, which has a wire pocket clip. So you can see it is, because it's flat instead of ramped down, it does stick up just a little bit more, but it's really not uncomfortable. And I think because of the fact, I'm just gonna set this down and not put that back in the pocket. I think because they laid it flat, and because it's rounded and you don't really have anything sharp, it doesn't really feel bad in hand. Access to the lock bar is pretty good. It's chamfered down nicely, and then it has this, I guess you would call it a 90-degree angle flat milled out spot here. So when you go to slide into it, you do get it. I do feel a little bit of pokiness here, but it's not awful, but I do feel it, and my finger is probably sensitive because I am still trying to break in the Grand. So I'm constantly fidgeting with that. So my thumb is a little bit tender, but I do feel there is some stiffness. But the good thing is it's not really pinching the skin if I do slip over some trying to slide it out. I do like this flipper tab. It does stick out, and it looks like, you know, when you thread a needle for sewing, that's the only thing I can think of, or maybe you're trying to thread the eye of a hook for fishing. Kind of looks like that, but I do like that look. I had another knife that had that for a while. I want to say it was the Civivi Brazen, if I remember correctly, and I liked it. I thought it was a little bit different than just your, I'm trying to find something that has a flipper tab on it. Oh yeah, here we go. So it looks to me aesthetically a little cooler. I mean, it's just something that's a little bit different than just your flat flipper tab that looks like just a piece of steel sticking out of the top. So a little bit of character is given to that. I'm trying to see. Yeah, here's another one from Civivi, but Civivi does a really good job making it really low profile to the knife. So I do appreciate that very much. I don't know. I'm pretty sure it was just the Brazen. I'm checking some of my other knives really quickly. But I think all of them just have that same solid steel with no hole in it. So the hole does make it look good, and it works really good for the push button. But as I've learned with this one, I prefer the light switch. And the nice thing about that is they did take the jimping and they went all the way up to the top. So even when you go to push button, for whatever reason, it's catching the sharpness just enough for that push button. And since you're pushing it down into the knife anyway, it doesn't really matter if you get too much traction because your finger's not moving around, you're pushing it into the knife, so it works really well. But the jimping is nice and sharp without being overly done for the flipper. Action is superb on this knife. It is very, very smooth. It is nylon washers. I believe it's steel bearings. I have not looked that up and I didn't take it apart, but I could see the nylon in there when I was looking up close with the flashlight. Speaking of the flashlight, they did do milling on both sides of the knife for the liner. You have smaller milling here because you do have the liner lock on that side, and then on the opposite side you have some slightly larger milling. Good job there. Nice job getting the weight down. This is a very impressive knife, very good for the money. Now, if you don't want to buy a Chinese made knife, what are my recommendations? It is going to continue to be this really amazing Buck 110 that is made in the USA for $28. I mean, the fact that it's manufactured in the US is why I continue to make this recommendation. The other reason I can make this recommendation is because it does have very nice ergonomic lines. It was very easy to strap up the 420. I took it over the ceramic rod, hit it on the leather strap, and I was able to get this hollow grind super slicey. And again, my thought behind this is if you don't want a Chinese made knife, you have a budget for a beater that's, you know, around that $30 price point, this is going to be a really nice option because you can use and abuse this. And if you don't care about fidgeting or smooth action or anything like that, just want a cutting tool to take on the job, or that you want to hard use or use a lot, you're definitely going to get your money's worth out of that knife. If you're interested in action, there's a couple of options that I can recommend as an alternative to this knife if you're not feeling the look of it. For me, I think aesthetically it's a very nice design. So the first knife I'm going to recommend is one that I continue to recommend that impresses me the most, because you're getting 14C28N and you're getting a stainless steel frame lock, and the aesthetics on this knife are very good. The action on this knife, very good, and it is held up really well. The 14C28N seems to be treated very well. I haven't used it as much or as long as the 14C28N on Civivi, but I know Jared at Neves Knives have said that that's the best 14C that he's encountered, that Civivi, whatever they're doing with their heat treat and edge retentions on their 14C is really good. I have not had any issues. It's holding the edge fine. I'm not using it like a ton. So I'm just doing some breaking down of some cardboard on occasion, and carrying and flipping it and handling it just so I can have it for a long term. This is going to, at $32, this is going to continue to be my recommendation for a very affordable 14C28N that's very thin and slicey to carry. And just to give you a reference really quick, because I know I didn't do the profiles against the other ones, but this is the same thickness as the factory stock scaled bug out. And as you can see here, it's just going to be a thinner carry. So that's why it continues to be that recommendation, because I'm not encountering anything that really does fit that bill. And it's a very different look, right? So if you don't like the look of this, you might like the look of the Reich. If you don't like the Reich, you might prefer the Gonzo and its spear point shape. But one more recommendation and then I'll wrap up. So the next one that I'm going to recommend is one that I'm going to continue to recommend, and that's going to be the Free Tiger. And I already forgot the name again. I do this every time. Let's look at it together. FT2103, yeah. So this one here, D2 steel, incredibly done access lock. Does have a little bit better access to the crossbar, so a little bit easier to actuate, very smooth. D2 steel, it does have about the same thickness in the blade stock here, so you're going to get about the same performance. It doesn't have as good a texturing. This has a little bit better grip to me than this one does, but they both have very good grips, very good pocket clips, and this one's going to be a little bit thinner to carry, I think. Maybe, I don't know, it might be the smallness. No, it is just a little bit thinner to carry. So again, just something to take into consideration in case you're not really feeling the Gonzo is going to be the FT2103. They didn't have too many left on Amazon, but it is my favorite Amazon budget knife, but this one's definitely recommendable. And thank you for recommending knives to check out. I don't mind checking these out and taking a shot in the dark, because these are much more affordable, very budget friendly knives. And so I don't mind taking a look at it from that regard. This one seems to be a pretty good example. You're getting about 20 to 30% lockup, about 25% lockup, I'd say, on that knife. But again, very nice for the money. Very impressed. Good D2, came with a nice edge. I'm going to keep this one for a little bit longer. I have some other knives that I can use for giveaways. I'd like to actually hang on to this one since I do like this, and I'd like to see how it performs. If it performs well, it might make its way into the recommendation for budget knives. In case you don't want a crossbar lock, I would like to have a G10 version of a knife that I can use as a recommendation for a budget. If you want something that's one-handed operating. I still haven't found anything US made, but I know that someone told me to check out Bear Ops, so I'm probably going to do that as well. So I do recommend this knife. I do personally prefer this knife to the other Gonzo knives that I had looked at. I don't like the action. Not as impressed with the ergos as I am with this one. This one's a really solid option. If you enjoyed today's video, do me a favor, leave a like. Consider subscribing if you're not already subscribed. If you are subscribed, thanks for the support. I appreciate you and the continued support. Everyone, make sure you have your notification bell set to all so you get alerts whenever new videos drop. That way you can choose which ones you watch. If you get a notification for a knife or a piece of EDC gear that you may not have as much interest in, then you can just ignore the notification, just like anything else that you have that you have signed up notifications for. Anyway, thanks. I hope all of you have a fantastic week. Thanks for tuning in with me today. And until next time, peace.